Hello friends, it's Laura from CoolMomAndCollected.com. I am sharing how I plan my homeschool year with Ambleside Online. Though I am a mom of 5 children and we do a Charlotte Mason philosophy with Ambleside Online, this is the first coming year, 2025 to 2026, where I will have my 6-year-old joining us, which is so exciting. I will have a year 3 student and I will have a year 1 student, and then my other little 3 Rugrats will be Kinderleben. I'm going to leave Kinderleben for another video, how I'm going to be dealing with those children during the homeschool year. But don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to stay along for more videos. I think my next video is probably going to be what I'm going to do with Kinderleben for the year, as well as my curriculum picks. Just throw on a little cardie. I'm going to be showing you guys how I plan with Ambleside Online with 2 children. How do I respond when something on the AO schedule doesn't work for me? What do I supplement it with? What advice I have? So I'm literally going to walk you guys through. The first thing that I do is I go to amblesideonline.org and I go to the year. I click year 1 because that is the year of one of my students. Then I click year 1 schedule. Once I click year 1 schedule, I scroll down and I click on the PDF option of the schedule given by AO for year 1 so that I can print it out in landscape mode on my printer. I do the same thing. As you can see, I will backtrack and go to year 3 since I have a year 3 student, and I will do the exact same thing. I will go to the schedule and I will click PDF and I will print out in landscape my schedule for year 3. And what I end up having, and I'll show you guys, is I end up having my year 1 schedule and I end up having my year 3 schedule. I like to put a little clip on each so that I can kind of keep these together, because trust me, they do look a lot alike and you do not want to get year 1 and year 3 mixed up. You'll be able to undo it, but it'll just be really annoying. Now that I have these schedules out, what I really want to focus on is going through subject by subject and taking a look at what resources for the subjects given I know I'm going to do and what I know I'm not going to do. So this is really easy. For instance, if I'm looking at my year 1 student and I know, now this is personal in my family, but we don't read stories about magic. We are about awe. We are about wonder. We have decided not to read stories that include magic, witches, sorcery, all that kind of stuff. I think that there is an abundance of great literature that inspires wonder and excitement and awe for our children without necessarily going down that road. So I know going down this list that I'm going to be crossing out the Blue Fairy book, because I do know that that's a fairy tale book. And that's just not something that we are studying in our homeschool. It's not something we're reading in our homeschool. Now, another thing that I can do is go down, for instance, and see, oh, a Poetry Garden of Verses by Robert Louis Stevenson. Well, we just did that last year in our homeschool, and so I think that I'm going to want to change that up. So here I go, crossing that out. I also see James Herriot's Treasury as part of literature. I'm going to cross that bad boy out because we have listened to that on audiobook about 2,400 times. So I'm not going to do that either. I'm also going to give you guys another example. We crossed out 50 famous stories. Why? Because over the course of my son's first year and second year, we did that entire book with all of my children. However, did you know that there are 30 more famous stories retold? That is kind of the sequel to 50 famous stories. That is actually something that I'm going to put in place. And so again, it's as easy as crossing it out and then putting what you think you're going to do. So step 1 is going to be, I'm going to look through my child's list and I'm going to cross out all the things that don't work for us. Because remember, guys, something all of my older homeschool role models from my homeschool group are teaching me, these amazing moms, is that homeschool is supposed to work for you. You don't do Ambleside Online to get caught up in everything this says to the letter of the law, where then once again you're stuck in this school mentality that isn't really catering to your child's uniqueness or your family's uniqueness. You don't want to get stuck copying something because you think this is the only way to do it. No, it's not. You guys can do what works for your family. That's the beauty of homeschool. If you see something on Ambleside Online that doesn't work for you, grab a good old pencil, grab some whiteout, and cross that sucker out. It's going to be fine, okay? In some scenarios, I will supplement that. And I do want to show, I have a little index card that I do while I'm planning. And if something doesn't work and I do see a need to supplement it, I have a little alternate option card where I might say, I'm not doing Burgess Bird Instead, I want to do this, like this is an alternate. These are some options. And I might find that on Facebook groups, Charlotte Mason Facebook groups, where I might ask a question. Hey guys, any alternate to the Burgess Bird book? I might want something else, or we just did the Burgess Bird book. Can somebody give me an alternate option? And I can kind of keep notes of that and get an idea. Or I might text my mommy friends like I did today, and I might get two options where it's something for me to consider, and I put it on my alternate possibilities note card. So that is something that I do. Once I cross out what subjects do not work for us, and I did that on both my year 1 and my year 3, I then look at subjects that maybe we're doing, but I'm modifying it in a way that will be different from what this AO schedule represents. For instance, this is a great example, Bible, right? My children and I, we read the Bible every day, and we've been working through a little bit of the Old Testament and the New Testament at the same time. So by the time we start homeschool for the 2025 to 2026 year, we will actually be starting John in the New Testament, and we will be doing Exodus in the Old Testament. And so what I did here on my AO schedule is I used handy dandy whiteout to white out all of the suggested Bible readings for the Old Testament, because I'm doing what works for our family, and we're in Exodus and we're in John. So if you guys can see, I just very easily whited that out, and I replaced it with we are doing Exodus and we are doing John. So we've gone subject by subject of each year, determining which subjects we are not doing, what possibilities of alternatives we will make to fill in those subjects. And by the way, if I did have an alternative, what I would do is I would just completely white out that line and then put the alternative there. I wouldn't then necessarily say, okay, we're doing this alternative instead. We'll do chapter 1 this way, chapter 2 this day, chapter 3. It's okay to leave what you're going to do blank and just kind of go with the flow of your homeschool. I think sometimes moms get so discouraged homeschooling because they put these plans to the T of what they're going to do every day. Okay, today we're going to do chapter 2. Next week we're going to do chapter 3, chapter blah, 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 whatever. They do that. And then when it doesn't measure up, they're so defeated because they have this like permanent memory in ink of all these things they're supposed to do and how behind they are. What I prefer to do, and I kind of just do this by what I feel in my heart, is if I see something's doable, take Paddle to Sea, for instance. You can see on Ambleside Online, I'm familiar with the author here, Paddle to Sea by Hollins, C. Hollins, I think it is. They have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. These chapters are very small where I know we're going to be able to get that done. However, if I am choosing a supplement myself, say, I don't want to do this, I want to do this instead, I'm going to leave the readings blank because I want to set my child up for success by feeling out how much we are going to get accomplished each day, and then I may fill that in later. I don't like forcing a certain standard to kind of sabotage myself and my child, if that makes sense. We printed the Ambleside schedules. We went subject by subject of each year, determining which recommended books we are not going to do under said subjects. As we remove some recommendations, maybe completely, we will either set an alternate for that, or, believe it or not, in some cases, you don't have to add. For instance, if you have like 5 different options for literature, which you do, and one piece of literature doesn't work, you don't necessarily need to fill that window with something else. You could say, you know what, it might actually be nice to have a little bit less since I'm tackling literature so heavily throughout this year. Or, as a very good friend, you know what, I love her. Sometimes I give her these text messages. What do I do in this situation? And I asked her, I said, hey, any suggestion for an alternate to James Herriot Treasury for Children? We've read that on repeat. So I'm over here kind of like freaking out like, oh no, we're not doing James Herriot. What am I going to do? You know? And my friend's like, nothing specific. You could just read beautiful picture books. And I'm like, why didn't I think of that? You know, my children aren't in high school. They're 6 and they're 8. She gave me some really good advice. Actually, another friend of mine actually gave me some good suggestions that I did put on my alternate list. But something that I really appreciated that my friend said is retrain your brain and allow yourself to change things up to fit the needs of your family. She said, try not to overthink it, especially this early in the game, and especially since you have several more kids coming from behind. I appreciate that because when you are as early in the game as I am, you have so many children. A lot of them are absorbing these things together, and there's so much grace for tackling something that you maybe missed in the past, especially when you have a lot of children. So I just want to encourage you guys, when you're worrying and freaking out about, oh, this doesn't work for our family, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Take a deep breath, because in some situations you'll want an alternate, but in other situations, you might just need a little bit of rest, and you might need to maybe get a picture book on animals, or, cater it more to what works for your child. So that is just some advice that I wanted to throw in there that I thought was really helpful. Another thing I do when planning my AO schedule that I'm doing with 2 children is I ask myself, okay, what are things my children can do together? What are subjects I can combine, meaning what are subjects that they can do separately? And then I make a note of what subjects they can do independently. For instance, if I know what subjects my kids can do together, and I know what subjects my kids need to do apart, and then I know what work they can do independently, I'm able to really set myself up for success when it comes to planning my logbook, making my schedule for my children for the coming year, which that could be a whole other video too. I'll give you guys some examples. Bible. I already know that at the top of every morning in our homeschool day, we do Bible together. So bam, that is one thing on our schedule that I know Bible's going to be first. It's something that we do at the start of every day, and we all do it together. Now, I also know from previous experience in setting up my schedule that we're also going to be doing narrations, recitations, hymns during that time. We're basically going to put everything in the beginning of our morning that we do together as a family. But let's move on. Then we have history, right? We are doing island story and history. Now, this is something that I started with my year 2 student last year, but all of my children were conscious and listening. The way I'm approaching history this year is I'm continuing from where we left off as a family in Island Story. I removed the recommendation for what to do year 1 because obviously that was bringing me back to chapters we already read, and I'm bringing my kids together in history, just picking up Island Story where we left off. I also know that my year 3 student is going to want to take part in the Ingrid d'Olier readings. Guys, I don't know how to say this author's name, but I want to because they're so good, and I don't know how to say it, but we're doing things like Benjamin Franklin, Pocahontas, Buffalo Bill. These are things that I know my year 3 student is going to be into. So although it's not his specific work recommended on his schedule, I'm going to be including him in that because I know that he's going to enjoy it. It's as simple as that. Now, when it comes to things like natural history, my year 3 student has readings in Paku. He also has drop of water experiments. If my daughter wants to sit in on these things, which honestly experiments and things like that, I think she's going to want to, she's more than welcome. We live in a very tiny space. So like our kids are constantly, we're just all learning together constantly. However, when we're doing natural history and we're studying trees with my daughter, if my son doesn't want to, he doesn't have to. But again, I kind of think it's probably going to look like him doing Legos and just picking things up. The way my home operates in the space that we're currently in, we're not in a very large space. We basically are all in the same room all day together. And so it's really hard for kids not to pick up when we're reading out loud. And I mean, that's a really beautiful thing. I don't know if it's that way for everybody. Here's a good example of something where I might tell my year 3 student, hey, go ahead and do Legos or do maybe your handicraft, wood whittling, whatever you want, go ahead and do it. I'm going to be doing Aesop with my year 1 student because in Aesop's fables, I actually have my child read it. And so since my oldest son already did, if he wants to, he can stick it out, but if he doesn't, he doesn't. So I hope that gives you guys kind of an idea. That's how I'm going to be approaching it. Now, just to give you some examples of, okay, Laura, we get it. These are all the things your kids are going to be doing with you, and there's more. What are some subjects that your kids will be doing separate and independently? So separate work, an example of that would be math. My year 1 student has absorbed so much math of my year 3 student that I actually think she's probably going to skip a whole book of math. But to not get ahead of myself, I will probably just go through book 1 still as quickly as I can instead of kind of leaving her where I think she's already progress. But the main thing is I'm going to be doing math separately. So that might look like my year 3 student is finally independent enough to do that math on his own. Whenever I'm working with my daughter, that's when I'm going to pull my year 3 son's independent work. He's going to do that by himself. As I'm doing one-on-one work with my daughter, those are the areas I'm going to be having my son do his independent work, and I'm already going to know what work needs to be independent, so it's going to be easy to pull those things. Copy work is also a great year 3 independent activity. So for instance, when I'm doing copy work with my year 1 student who's going to need a little bit more help, I will definitely have my year 3 student start working on his copy work. he can do that on his own. When I'm doing reading with my year 1 student from our Beacon First Reader, that will be another opportunity for my year 3 student to do another independent work. And this is kind of how I flawlessly make our schedule come together, which is really not the purpose of this video, to show you guys how I make my schedule, but more how the wheels get turning into planning my homeschool year. If you guys aren't familiar with our artist study, composer study, and nature study, but we choose one day of our week where we're meeting with our homeschool nature outdoor group, and I will allocate that to one day. Working with Ambleside online schedule, I just want to let you know, some people stop with Ambleside because they feel overwhelmed by the schedule, or they feel nervous if they can't complete something. You know, I felt that way when I was with the CMEC, to be perfectly honest. I love the CMEC. I've shared in a past Q&A that I felt like CMEC really held my hand and showed me everything beautiful there was to know about doing Charlotte Mason education. What's beautiful about Ambleside is I now know, and I now have that piece, that there is so much to explore, but not everything given. If it doesn't work for your family, it doesn't need to be done. Like I said, guys, you can always supplement. You can always just take a rest. You can always say, you know what, not having this is actually going to be a great grace period for me, so I could really focus on other things. Because one of my biggest pieces of advice with homeschool is you can feel like you're doing all the things and your kid could learn nothing. And that's because overwhelming kids with too many things can sometimes really sabotage them where they're not learning anything at all. So I just want to encourage you guys, don't feel like less is less. Don't feel like doing less is a failure. Don't feel like doing less is inadequacy, is your inadequacy, your child's inadequacy. Sometimes doing less allows you to focus more on what really matters. So I want to encourage you guys with that. In case you guys have never seen an AO schedule, and maybe you want to know, how do you do your free reads? I want to show you guys every Ambleside online year 1, year 2, year 3, all the way to the top. They have free reads where they will actually give you the age-appropriate free reads for your child, and I absolutely love it. I usually go through this and I'll highlight the ones that I plan to do, and I keep track of that in my logbook, all the ones that we have accomplished. This is for year 3, but I want you guys to know they have the same for year 1, as I stated. If these do not work for you, you guys can find a free read that works for you. It does not have to be from this list, but that's how I get a majority of my ideas. I really do highly suggest you guys print out and give these Ambleside online schedules a chance, because they lay such a great foundation. I guess this is really 3 steps in my planning the Ambleside year, because the last step that I'll do is I will use my index cards, and I love this. I will make a what I have year 1 and what I need year 1 note card. And as I'm looking at my decisions that I've made for Ambleside Online, I will write, for my convenience, all of the book recommendations that I have, and then all of the book recommendations that I want to do that I still need. And why this is really helpful is because then at the end of the day, I know, okay, let's now go see where I can get these. And if you're like me, if you're not in your forever home yet and you're not like truly established, you may not want to spend $200 on books that you have nowhere to put. Like, you might want to do what I do, and you might want to operate a lot off your Kindle, which, by the way, I loved using my Kindle last year, my first year, using every book I could on my Kindle possible. But one thing I wanted to tell you guys that I would not do again is I would not put my kids' free reads or their chapter books that they are reading on my Kindle. I did not like my son trying to read on my Kindle. I just didn't like it. He wasn't as engaged, I noticed, as when he had a book of paper in his hands. He would accidentally make the font bigger or smaller, or maybe he would accidentally skip to the next page, and it just really killed the vibe, if I'm honest. I'm never going to do Kindle, like let my kid read on a Kindle again. I want him to have a physical book in his hand. Now that I have everything that I have for year 1 and don't have for year 1, and then everything I have for year 2 and don't have for year 2, this is the fun part, because it's like, how much money can I save? So I'll check my library catalog and I'll see how many of these books can I just rent from the library, because again, I do love having the physical book. But then I'll also see how much I can get on Kindle. Guys, on Kindle, you can literally get like a book for 99 cents. Sometimes it's even free. And the cool thing is, if you check the book straight from Ambleside Online's book list, you'll even see they have free versions for majority of these books. So you can literally read these books just on Ambleside Online. I did that with Pilgrim's Progress, And I loved it. That is my third step. It's seeing which books I already have, seeing what I can get from the library, see if there's any free options on Ambleside Online, and see what I can get on Kindle, or do I just want to purchase it? For instance, I'm doing Math Book 3, Arithmetic with Simply Charlotte Mason, and I tried my hardest to thrift one of those books, to get them off, Amazon and a used situation. I couldn't, so I ended up purchasing that book. But that is probably the only book of the school year that I will purchase, because I see the wisdom of having that physical brand new book that literally 4 other children are going to be using. That's it, guys. Today's video was really just about giving you guys my method of how I plan. What I would really love is for you guys to leave any questions about my process in the comments section below. If I missed something, I am here. I would love to kind of help, and I want to make sure that my information to you guys is thorough. So please let me know. Also, if there's a secondary video to this that you'd like me to do, like if you would like to see, me actually making my schedule, or just don't be shy, because I'm really willing to make these videos, especially when I know that it's helping people. I hope that we can kind of make Ambleside Online and Charlotte Mason philosophy a little bit more practical, that we don't need to have these mini heart attacks when a book doesn't work for us. Or if you're like me this year, a lot of the literature suggestions actually have a lot of magic, have a lot of mythology and things I don't particularly feel led to teach my children at the stage. I'm going to be supplementing with something else. And guess what? Everyone's gonna live. Okay, so that's it. That's how I plan. And now I know everything my kids are gonna be doing. I know everything they will not be doing. And I know now what books I need to get, what books I have. By the way, if you guys have been wondering why this area of my home is such a mess, it's because I'm having a garage sale soon. So if you've been judging me and saying that I'm messy, you need to apologize, because it's for a garage sale, okay? Love you guys. I am excited to see you in my next video. Remember, stay cool, calm, and collected. And I will see you then. Bye.